15 of the most common Irish surnames are not actually Irish. They are Viking, Norse warrior names hiding inside ordinary family names that millions of people carry today in Boston, in Sydney, in Dublin itself. And if one of them is yours, your bloodline does not begin in a green field. It begins on a longship. In the year 841, those ships rowed up the River Liffey and stopped beside a dark pool called Dublin. The men who stepped off built Dublin, married Irish women, and never left. This is the proof they left inside your name. One rule before we start counting. Every name on this list turns its place through evidence. The actual Old Norse word buried inside it, and where the records survive, the real families who carried it. And the deeper this countdown goes, the harder the proof gets. Number 1 does not just suggest Viking blood. It states it outright in a single word. Number 15. We begin with a name so ordinary, it hides in plain sight in every American phone book. It sounds English. It sounds safe. Most people who carry it have no idea what is sitting inside it. The name is Reynolds. In Ireland, Reynolds is the anglicized form of MacRínal, son of Rynal, and Rynal is not an Irish name at all. It is the Gaelic spelling of the Old Norse name Rognvald-ur, a warrior name meaning ruler of the council of the gods. This was a king's name in the Norse world. Men called Ragnall ruled Viking Dublin and Viking Waterford in the 900s, and the annals of Ireland record their wars in the same breath as the Irish kings they fought and married. The MacRínal sept held land along the River Shannon, in what is now County Leitrim and County Longford, close enough to the water to remember where the name came from. When English clerks later flattened MacRínal into Reynolds, the Norse king inside the name went quiet. But he never left. If your name is Reynolds, your family did not name itself after an Englishman. It named itself after a man who carried the name of Viking royalty, and that is only the softest proof on this list. Number 14. The next name belongs to Ulster, and it is short, blunt, and easy to walk past without a second look. The name is Toner. Toner comes from the Irish O Torar, descendant of Torar, and Torar is a Norse personal name that appears in the Irish annals in the very first generations of the invasion, attached to Viking war leaders. The annals of the 800s record a jarl called Torar, described as deputy to the king of Lochlan itself, who fell in battle against the kings of Munster in 848. That is how early this name enters Irish history, not as a settler, but as a commander in the opening wars. Over the centuries, the name walked off the longships into the Irish language, and finally into an Irish family line that settled along the River Foyle, in Tyrone and Derry, where toners remain thick on the ground today. Most toners today have never heard of Torah, but every time the name is spoken, an Irish mouth is still pronouncing a Viking, more than 1,000 years after he landed. Number 13 is one of the most common surnames in all of Ireland. It belongs to boxers, writers, and half the pubs on the East Coast. And it is not really a name at all. It is a label, a description the Irish stuck on a very specific kind of stranger. The name is Doyle. Doyle is O Dove Gaul, Dove meaning dark, and Gaul meaning foreigner. The dark foreigner. When the raids began, the Irish sorted the invaders by their hair. The fair-haired Norwegians were the fair foreigners. The darker Danes were the Duvgaul, the dark foreigners. So a family called O'Duvgall was, in the plainest possible Irish, the descendants of the Dane. The name is strongest along the southeast coast, in Wexford and Wicklow and Carlow, exactly where Viking ships kept landing. Think about what that means. Doyle is not a name that hints at Viking ancestry. It is the word an entire nation used to point at Vikings. And if a name like Doyle can turn out to be a 1,000-year-old wanted poster, ask yourself what else is hiding in the names around you. That is what this channel does, every single week. Subscribe now, because the next countdown decodes the Irish surnames that descend from professional killers, the armored mercenaries that Irish kings paid in land and cattle. If you think Viking blood is dramatic, wait until you meet the Gallowglass. Now back to the count, because number 12 wore a crown. Number 12. This next name sounds like it walked out of an English manor house. In Ireland, it did no such thing. The name is Godfrey. Many Irish Godfrey families descend from MacGorry, son of Gothfrid. And Gothfrid is the Gaelic form of the Old Norse Guthruthur, a name carried by Norse kings of Dublin and the Isles. The name appears again and again in the royal bloodline that ruled the Viking Sea Kingdom, stretching from Dublin through the Hebrides to the Isle of Man. One bearer, Godred Crovan, seized the Isle of Man in 1079 and founded a dynasty of sea kings that held those waters for nearly 200 years. Manx tradition still remembers him. That is the caliber of name we are talking about. In Fermanagh and along the Ulster borderlands, MacGorry became McGorry, then Godfrey, and the royal Norse name put on an English suit. If it is your name, take the suit off. There is a sea king underneath. Number 11 is a name that gets mistaken for its more famous cousin every single day. Beirne, with a Y, is one of the most Gaelic names in Ireland. This name is not that name. The name is Beirne. B-E-I-R-N-E. Beirne, found in Roscommon and Mayo, is built on the Norse personal name, Bjorn. And Bjorn means exactly what you think it means, bear. It was one of the most common warrior names in the entire Viking world, the name of jarls and sea captains from Norway to Iceland, including Bjorn Ironside, the son of Ragnar Lodbrok, that half the internet knows from television. And this was no fringe family. The O'Beirne family held their own territory along the Shannon in Roscommon and served for centuries in the war retinues of the O'Connor kings of Connaught. A family named for the bear, fighting for the kings of the West. The name fit. So while Beirne with a Y descends from a Gaelic king of Leinster, Beirne with an E descends from a man whose name meant bear in the language of the longships. One vowel is the difference between two completely different bloodlines. Check your spelling. It matters more than you knew. For number 10, we go to Cork. And for the first time in this countdown, we can put a name on actual parchment. The name is Cotter. Cotter is Mac Cot Ear, originally Mac Otair, son of Ottar. Ottar was a common Norse name, and the Cork family that carries it claimed descent from Ottar, a Norse Gael king who ruled Dublin in the 1140s. But here is the evidence that separates Cotter from folklore. In the year 1290, more than a century after the Normans conquered the Norse towns of Ireland, a man recorded as Maurice MacAuliffe stood before the English authorities in Cork on behalf of roughly 300 of his kinsfolk. His argument, preserved in the legal record, was that his people were being treated as Irish when they were, in his words, not Irish. They were Ostmen, the descendants of the Northmen. Read that again. In 1290, the Cotters of Cork stood up in an English court and declared on the record that they were of Viking stock. Their surname was their proof then. If it is your surname, it is your proof now. You can still find their footprint on the map of Cork in the townland of Ballymacotter, the town of the sons of Ottar. Number 9 does not sound Irish, and it does not sound Norse either. It sounds like something painted on the side of a seaside hotel. The name is Dolphin. It has nothing to do with the animal. Dolphin comes from the Old Norse personal name Dolgfin Air, a name rooted in the Norse settlements of northern England. It was a name with weight there. A lord called Dolphin held Carlisle in the late 1000s until an English king marched north and pushed him out in 1092. Around the 1200s, a family carrying the name crossed to Ireland and put down roots in County Galway, where the Dolphins became a recognized landed family in the tribal world of the West. It is one of the strangest journeys on this list. A Viking name sailed to England, weathered there for generations, then crossed the Irish Sea and became a Galway name so established that most of its holders assume it is simply anciently Irish. It is older and stranger than that. If your name is Dolphin, your name has been migrating for 1,000 years. Ireland is just where it chose to stop. You do not need a parish register to verify number 8. You can verify it with a Dublin street map. The name is Harold. Harold comes from the Old Norse Haraldur, one of the great royal names of Scandinavia, the name of the king who unified Norway, and the name of the last Viking to invade England in 1066. In Ireland, Harold was carried by Ostman families of Dublin and Limerick, descendants of the Norse townsmen who stayed on after the battles ended. The Dublin Harolds held lands on the southern edge of the city, and they guarded the frontier so long that the map absorbed them. That is why one of Dublin's best-known neighborhoods is called Harold's Cross. Thousands of people pass through it every day without realizing they are walking through a Viking family's front garden. If your name is Harold, your family is not just in the records. It is in the street signs of the Irish capital. Number 7 is the rarest name on this list, and it carries the most famous Viking on it. If this one is in your family, you have been sitting on treasure. The name is Kitterick, also found as McKittrick, McKitterick, and even Setright. All of them come from Mac Sitrick, son of Sitrak, and Sitrak is the Gaelic form of the Old Norse Sigtrygr, meaning true victory. Ireland knew one bearer of that name above all others, Sitrick Silkbeard, Norse king of Dublin for more than 40 years. The king who stood at the center of the storm that produced the Battle of Clontarf in 1014. Sitrick survived it, and around the year 1030, he founded a church inside his city walls. That church is Christ Church Cathedral, still standing in the middle of Dublin today. The surname does not prove descent from Sitrick Silkbeard himself. What it proves is that your family's founder carried the same royal Norse name in an island where that name meant power. A cathedral, a crown, and a battlefield, all folded into a surname most people cannot even place. That is number 7. Number 6 is a quiet Midlands name from Westmeath, Longford, and Cavan. Nothing about it looks dangerous, and yet it is the only name on this list with a god inside it. The name is Tormey. Tormey is O Tormey, descendant of Tormok, and Tormok is the Gaelic rendering of the Old Norse name Thor Moda Ur. The first half of that name is exactly what it looks like. Thor, the thunder god of the Norse, the hammer, the storm. Thor Mod means the courage of Thor, and Norse fathers gave it to sons they hoped would fight like the god protected them. So somewhere behind every Tormey in the Irish Midlands stands a man whose parents dedicated him to the thunder god, and whose descendants carried that dedication through 1,000 years of Irish Christianity without ever noticing it. Your grandmother said, the rosary. Your surname says, Thor. Both of those things are true at once, and that is Ireland for you. Number 5. Into the top 5 now, and the proof stops being subtle. This name does not contain a Norse warrior's name or a Norse god's name. It contains the Norse homeland itself. The name is McLoughlin, with its cousins O'Loughlin and Lochlin. In Irish, Lochlan was the name for the land the longships came from, the fjord country, Norway, the world of the Northmen. To call someone Lochlan was to call him the Scandinavian. So McLoughlin means, with no decoration at all, son of the Viking. The O'Loughlins of the Beirne in Clare ruled the Atlantic edge of Ireland and were remembered as kings of that stone kingdom, while other Lochlin lines rose in the north. One honest note, because this channel deals in evidence. Some McLoughlin families descend from Gaelic royal stock who simply favored the name Lochlan for their sons. But that is the point. In medieval Ireland, even Gaelic kings were naming their children the Viking. That is how deep the Norse had sunk into Irish blood and Irish imagination. Whichever line you come from, your surname points north across the sea. Number 4 is where this countdown starts drawing blood. This is not a family that drifted into Ireland. This is a family that was hired. The name is Sweeney. Sweeney is Mac Sivne, and the personal name Sivne itself is Gaelic. So why is it on this list? Because of where the family comes from. The Mac Sivne line rose in the Hebrides and the western sea lanes of Scotland, the mixed world the annals call Norse Gael, where Viking settlers and Gaelic chiefs had been intermarrying for 300 years. The Sweeneys were products of that fusion. Gaelic speech, Norse seamanship, and a very Norse relationship with violence. Around the 1200s they crossed to Donegal, and they did not come as farmers. They came as gallowglass, elite armored mercenaries, axemen who fought for Irish kings in exchange for land and cattle. 3 separate Sweeney lordships took root in Donegal, all of them paid in territory for war. If your name is Sweeney, your ancestors were the weapon Irish kings reached for when the fighting turned serious. That world of hired axes gets its own video on this channel very soon. For now, hold this. Number 4 was never just a surname. It was a job description. The top 3 open with the darkest name on this list. To explain it, we have to stand on a beach north of Dublin on Good Friday of the year 1014 at the Battle of Clontarf. Clontarf was the bloodiest day medieval Ireland had ever seen. 2 armies, Irish and Norse and every mixture in between, tore each other apart between the tide lines from morning until dark. By sunset, the old High King of Ireland, Brian Boru, is dead in his tent. And the man the sagas name as his killer is a Viking commander from the Isle of Man. His name was Broderick. Number 3 is Broderick. Broderick is O Bruadir, descendant of Bruadar, and Bruadar is the Gaelic form of that same Norse name, Broderick. It was carried into Irish families in exactly the era when Norse and Irish blood were braiding together. And O Bruadir lines took root in Cork, in Kilkenny, and in the West. Now the honest line, because this channel promises evidence, not fairy tales. Carrying the name Broderick does not make you the descendant of the man who killed Brian Boru. What it proves is this: when your family chose the name of its founding father, the name it chose was a Norse one, the same name that Ireland's most infamous Viking carried onto that beach. Your bloodline was so entangled with the Northmen that it wears one of their names to this day. One of the great O Brú Adir descendants, by the way, was a poet, one of the finest Irish language poets of the 1600s. From an axe on a beach to a pen in Munster. That is what 600 years does to Viking blood in Ireland. It does not disappear. It changes weapons. Number 2 is the cleanest translation on this entire list. No decoding, no detective work. Just one language wrapped around another, like a fist in a glove. The name is McAuliffe. McAuliffe is McAuliffe. And Auliv is simply what Irish mouths did to the Old Norse name Olaf Ur. Olaf, which means every McAuliffe walking around Cork today is, letter for letter, the son of Olaf. And in Ireland, Olaf was not just any Norse name. It was the royal name of Viking Dublin. Auliv con Ung, one of the first Norse kings of the city. Auliv Cuaran, the Sandal King, who ruled Dublin and York and died a pilgrim on the holy island of Iona. The name sits in the annals beside every major collision between the Irish and the Northmen for 200 years. The McAuliffes settled in northwest Cork, where the town of Newmarket sat at the heart of their old territory, remembered as the country of Clan O'Leaf, the children of Olaf. Say the name slowly and you can hear the whole story. A Norse king's name, swallowed by the Irish language, surviving 1,000 years inside a Munster family. Son of Olaf. It never stopped being true. And now number 1. Every other name on this list contains a clue. A Norse warrior, a Norse king, a Norse god, the Norse homeland. Number 1 skips the clues entirely. Number 1 is a confession. The name is Higgins. In Ireland, Higgins is O'Higgin, descendant of Igin, and Igin is the Gaelic form of one specific Old Norse word, Vikingur, Viking. Not a Viking's name, not a Viking's god. The word Viking itself. A family called O'Higgin is, in plain English, the descendants of the Viking. It is the single most direct statement of Norse ancestry that the Irish language ever pressed into a surname. And look at what that bloodline did with it. The O'Higgin family of the West became one of the great bardic dynasties of Ireland. Professional poets who trained for years and served kings with verse instead of axes. Centuries later, the name crossed the ocean and Bernardo O'Higgins became the liberator of Chile, with the main avenue of Santiago carrying an Irish Viking surname to this day. And in our own time, a man named Michael D. Higgins has served as President of Ireland. A President of Ireland whose surname means Viking. History has a sense of humor, and it is patient. If your name is Higgins, you do not need a DNA kit to hear the answer. Your ancestors already wrote it down. They wore the word itself. 15 names: kings, bears, thunder gods, mercenaries, and one family that simply wrote Viking on the door. Ireland never expelled the Northmen. Ireland absorbed them, and the surnames are the watermark that absorption left behind, still legible after 1,000 years. So now it is your turn. Tell us where you're listening from, and which surname you'd like decoded. Any name, any origin, drop it in the comments. Your name might be an upcoming episode, because your name is not just a word on your passport. It is the oldest thing your family owns. You are named by history.